All right. So I did want to start. It looks like we're live. If you're joining us on Facebook or the YouTubes, welcome. It's time for a live stream, and there's an after party that we're going to do. We'll talk about that in a second. The first thing that I wanted to notice is just a really interesting curiosity and synchronicity, and that is that there was an act of parliament. So Katie and I are in the UK right now, by the way. There was an act of parliament that was just passed that said that if you are broadcasting from the UK, that you're required to say something along the lines of, "Hello and welcome to the Evolutionary. My name is David Knox. I'm still your host, and I'm so excited to be here today with my good friend Molly Mandelberg." Hey, Molly,
Hi,
how's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
I am super fantastic, super excited to have you on the show again. The first thing that I want to do is let everyone know that if you have not uh, got the link for the after party for the Zoom call, by the way, is running concurrent with the live stream right now. At some point, we're going to bounce to the after party exclusively. And if you would like that, there is still time to get it. Go to https:// theevolutionary.life, because .com is so last season, /invitation, and you can put in your deets and it will show up in your email momentarily, and you can join us on the Zoom call and get the really juicy stuff after we bounce to the after party. The next thing that I want to do is, if you are not familiar with Molly, I would like to fix that right now and get you acquainted with her. Molly is the author of Wild Hearts Rise Up, The Wild Woman's Roadmap to Conscious Leadership from Inspiration to Actualization. She is an artist, a globetrotter, a best-selling author, a podcast host, a speaker, a facilitator, a leader, and a dear friend of mine. Molly has an unusual combination of spiritual visionary and high-tech practical business savvy, which makes her able to bridge the gap between the inner work and the outer strategies of entrepreneurship. My favorite word. She is back on the show to talk about her wizardry in business and the wisdom that she applies to life. Molly, so good to have you back for the We Won't Count time. You look really good, by the way. I
Thanks. I
guess my
feel
first
good.
question is, because I'll have whatever she's having. What did you have for breakfast? You look amazing.
I haven't had breakfast yet. I slept in and took the dogs out and fed Atreyu and got coffee and water, and I'm here.
And that's how you roll, and I love that about you. Okay, we are going to start with good news and fresh perspectives. First of all, I do want to say that Katie and I are in a lovely place, and it is called Lockridge, Marlborough, Wiltshire, England, UK, or GBR if you're watching the Olympics. They've got a lot of commas over here. You you were full-time traveling for a long time, but you have been doing something a little closer to homesteading lately. Where are you at?
Yeah.
What you doing?
It's funny because I was just in England, so I can feel the energy from here of where you're at. But yeah, right now I'm in Southern Oregon in the beautiful Applegate Valley, and I kind of paused my 6-year stint of full-time van lifing and gallivanting and vagabonding because I fell in love with a housey, somebody who lives in a sticks and bricks. And so I've been living on a 5-acre piece of land and building a garden and doing the kombucha and the sourdough and making everything from scratch kind of game, which has been a really nice change of pace, honestly.
That is so dope. It sounds lovely, and you're wearing it well. It seems to be working
Thank
for you. Yeah.
you.
Cool. So we start every episode with good news and fresh perspectives. And that is a segment where we are aiming to give intelligent people reason to be optimistic regarding the trajectory of humanity and the prospects for our future. And we're not talking about, the bake sale to raise money for the blah, 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 or the famous person visiting the children's cancer ward. I mean, that stuff's awesome, but we're looking for things that may have a little bit more impact on the trajectory of humanity. And, things like evolving political systems, economic systems, new technologies, medical advances, new ways of thinking, anything that evolves the human paradigm and consciousness and preferably moves us in the direction of harmony with ourselves, with each other, and with our environment. And so we're going to each take a turn on that. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
First, I will go. Okay, so I want to talk a minute about hydrogen power. 20, 30 years ago when I first started hearing about hydrogen power and the fuel cell cars. And there was a dog and pony show where some of the automakers took them around the country or around the world. And, this is the future. We just need a few more decades. And of course, I don't think they've been doing anything towards it. It was just smoke and mirrors to make us think that there was some hope of getting off of fossil fuel. But, it's a tricky technology, and it, has some problems because we don't have infrastructure for it, but it's clean. And it has hung around. It's just not going away, and it keeps popping up. And very recently, there were a couple of interesting things that came out on that front. One of them is that MIT created a hydrogen-powered motorcycle. What they did is they took the hydrogen power plant or propulsion system, and they retrofitted it to an old Ducati, like a 1999 Ducati. And the thing that they did was they made all of the things that they did open source. And so if you are properly motivated, you can go onto the MIT website. I went, it's actually there. And you can get all of the specs, all of the things that they did to create this hydrogen fuel cell motorcycle. It's very exciting. And that open source trend, that Elon Musk did with Tesla and stuff, I think is a really nice one to see, especially regarding technology that could replace petrol. The other thing that happened is that the first hydrogen-powered ferry has begun service in the San Francisco Bay Area. It emits only water, of course, and the water is so clean that they're remineralizing it and using it for drinking water on the vessel. Not sure how I feel about drinking that water. I might bring my own, but the vessel is called the MV Sea Change. It's a joint venture between California State and the builder is All American Marine. Chevron is in there somehow involved. I'm not sure how I feel about that either. That could go either way. Could be a good sign. It could be it's something insidious. We'll see. But the upshot here is that hydrogen is a tricky technology, but we have lots of tricky technologies that we have advanced and that we utilize and that we get better at. And the other problem with hydrogen that has always been cited is that there's no infrastructure for it. Well, there was no infrastructure for electric vehicles either. And there is definitely an infrastructure that has been growing up around the nation and around the world. And that's even, I think, harder than hydrogen because you can't utilize the existing gas station for it. You have to have a separate place because a car has to be able to park for half an hour to get a charge. Hydrogen, you can just fill the tank. Yeah, there has to be stuff built, but you could probably retrofit gas stations for that purpose because you just got to pull in, pump, pay, and pull out. So I think it's exciting. There's promise there, and we'll see what happens.
That is very exciting. I love the idea of hydrogen power taking over the motor industry, and also like how many other advances could happen with that in
Totally. And
every
hydrogen
area
power
of technology.
and they're making the fuel cell engine smaller and smaller, as evidenced by they're putting it in a motorcycle now. And so a lot of things could be fueled by it. And hydrogen is the most, it's one proton, one electron. It's simplest and the most abundant element in the universe.
Yeah.
And then it
I
burns.
love that.
Right? Yeah.
Amazing. So cool. I just want to say I love that this was not like an assignment, but like part of doing the show with you is doing a little research into what is some good news or fresh perspectives. So two things I found. One is that Mexico just elected their first woman president, and I feel like that paved some really beautiful roads for us here in the United States. Fingers crossed. Congrats to Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico. And to all of Mexico for making that leap into a new era of politics. And the other one I found, which is super relevant right now, we're in fire season in many places in the world that didn't used to have huge fire seasons. It's more and more normal. that there is a fire department in San Bernardino County that enlisted hundreds of goats, goats as in like, foliage eating goats, to go up into the hills and eat back the brush so that would help prevent more wildfire spreading or more insanity of wildfires, which I think is just brilliant. That some fire department was like, you know what, this area that we released goats last year had less. It was able to slow the spread of a wildfire so that they could get more containment around it or whatever. So I just love that. I love that we're using goats. I love that goats are a part of the fire department now.
That is,
And if that works, I hope that people use that in way more places.
it's brilliant. Take the fuel for the fire and turn it into poop.
Yeah.
It's fertilizer. It's so good. It's so good. I love that one. Yeah, I love that one particularly because, you know what, the park fire is still burning right now, and it started very close to my hometown of Chico in the Upper Park, which is where I spent many wonderful days as a young man. That burned, and then it went north, fortunately, and didn't make it too far to the east, because to the east was Paradise and Magalia that burned in the campfire for 6 years ago, where my brother lost his house. He just got his new house built this year. He was on yellow alert, getting ready to evacuate. I don't think he was going to leave. I think he had his garden hose out and he was ready to do battle. But yeah, it was really dicey. So
Yeah.
goats, yeah,
Goats. Yeah.
right on. Cool. Let's talk about some stuff. Let's talk
Okay.
about. So I guess what I want to talk about, to set the stage for this, is that I've known you for a very long time, and I was a good friend of yours already by the time you started. By the time you went, "F this, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and then later I'm going to be a van lifer and an entrepreneur," and uh, and I've watched you, just really dive into it and attack all of the various aspects of it. So you have just deep personal experience with all of the facets of what it takes to do this. And so having you, and at the same time, you're not you're not doing it from the perspective of a muggle. You're doing it from a perspective of, I throw this mantra around all the time: magic first. You're doing it from okay, let's coordinate things, let's create things on the causal plane, and let them happen, and that speaks to my heart. And so we'll get into all of that, but that's kind of the table setting here for the conversation, and hopefully we can bring through some really good stuff for our listeners, viewers.
Heck yeah. I'm
Cool.
into it.
Cool. Okay, so last time we spoke, we talked about the idea. I was throwing around the word solopreneur, right? Which is this thing where you are the business and you do everything yourself. And you had some perspective on that I really liked, and I think it would be valuable if you share that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's really easy to find catchphrases like that and adopt them as, part of our identity. And what I've found, which I definitely used to call myself a solopreneur, and I think by its definition, I definitely am a solopreneur. But I think there's something tricky that happens with A, naming ourselves something like that, and B, the concept of the word solopreneur in itself makes it seem like you are an island of one, you have to do everything yourself, that everything is on your shoulders, and that if you fail, or if you don't succeed, or if you don't try hard enough, that everything is bad and wrong, and that means you're bad and wrong. And so I kind of stopped using that word and had a little like energy irk when you brought up that word as something to title the show with, because we go further together. That the fact that I am still in business after nearly a decade is sure in large part due to my tenacity, but it's also in large part due to having been deeply in community with other entrepreneurs, to having support for my business, both from assistants and also from mentors, and for having accountability built in with other people who I admire and respect who were also building a similar dream. That to think that I did this myself and didn't have support is just a lie. And I think that sometimes if we put on the solopreneur hat, we can actually get stuck in a rut of thinking to ask for support is wrong or it's a failure, or to lean into community with other people who are doing similar things as you would be a sense of competition. And it's like counter to what I have found actually really works, which is that we go further together. That when we immerse ourselves in community, when we lean into support, when we get mentorship or help from people who have gone before us, that everything gets easier and that the vision gets built a lot more smoothly.
Yeah, hallelujah on that. And if you get sucked into the mindset of solopreneurship and you have to do everything, you can't. It's overwhelming. Even if you're the most
It's
motivated person in the world and you're going to really roll up your sleeves and get it, then you're just on road to burnout, right? You literally can't do it all yourself in a healthy way.
yeah,
Yeah.
not in a healthy way. That's the key. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's very refreshing. And I fall into that trap myself. There's a lot to do. There's way more that could possibly ever be done in the time frame, that we feel like it should be done in. And so it's absolutely vital. Thank you for that. Okay. You have published 2 books, you host 2 podcasts, you created your own Oracle deck, and you've done most of that while traveling the world full time. Can you share any insights about creativity and productivity and how you manage all of that? And I particularly am interested in knowing this personally because I'm doing just that. And it's challenging. And I'm not nearly as productive as I observed you being during those years. So can you shed some light for us?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think there's a dance, a dance with chaos sometimes, but there's two main sides to that level of creativity or productivity that I've found help me show up more, help me show up for my projects and creations more. And on one side, it looks like strategies and organization and like boundaries. And on the other side, it looks like finding a balance with doing the fun stuff. So having days where you are not in charge of a business, where you get to play, or having days where moments where you make art for the sake of it, not for content or for selling. Um, for me, it looks like a lot of lists, a lot of calendaring, a lot of boundaries around my schedule, what time I'm available for clients, what time I'm available for my projects, what time I'm not going to be hustling and grinding and creating so that I have that pause built into my life. The pause is where new insights and gems can come through. If we keep going and going and going, there isn't often blank space for something divine to be downloaded. And then the like mindset part is a huge component. I think a lot of times we can get, well, all of us are born and raised in a specific environment. Sometimes that environment is really conducive to free thinking and creativity and building your own dreams. And sometimes we pick up patterns from our family, from our friends, from society that are just working counter to the vision you may have to be successful as an entrepreneur. And so a lot of the permission to create, the permission to show up, the permission to be visible, the courage, the safety that you can find in that, it is something that we have to sort of design and build in ourselves. So part of that, keeping boundaries around my schedule is because I need time every single day to check in with me, to see how I'm doing, to tap into my vision, to remember why I'm creating all the things that I'm creating. So I have, lots of organization to make sure if I have an idea, it has somewhere to go and be written down if I can't act on it right now. If I have an idea I want to be acting on, that it is put onto my calendar so that I know I don't have to worry about that right now. There's a time where I'm going to be paying attention to it. And then also, I only see clients 3 days a week. And the other 4 days of the week, I'm either creating for myself, creating for my business, or playing in creation in some way. So there's lots of blank space for those ideas to be downloaded, and also whole days where I can follow through on writing a book or building an Oracle deck or learning how to make sourdough. That those things, those other habits or those other practices or those other hobbies that you want to explore or passion projects, they need space to breathe. And those don't just get laid into a really busy existing schedule. They have to be sort of made space for. you know? So those are just some of the things that I would recommend is let your ideas have a place to live. Get organized about where your ideas go until you can act on them. Create boundaries around the space and time that you want to be acting on your passion projects and dreams. And also play into the why, play into the beliefs that you have about why you should or why you can versus why you shouldn't or why you can't, and look at what's in there, because sometimes we think, oh, I just don't have time for that thing. But really, it's I'm scared to make that thing, or I'm scared to figure out who I might be if I do that thing, or I'm scared of acknowledging who I am if I don't do that thing. So it's better to just avoid it. There's a lot of mindset layers that can be unpacked in our beliefs around things. And that's why often my work with clients is looking at both sides of that. What kinds of systems and structures do we need to put in place so this can come to life in the first place? And what kinds of beliefs do we need to rewrite or reprogram so that the thing that is coming to life doesn't get throttled or stopped by our own, unnamed or unseen stuff?
Yeah. This is probably part of the mindset discussion, but you must have had times when the money was crunching and you feel like, oh God, I don't have time to do something that isn't, marketing or income generating or whatever. And I think, we all know that's a grind, and that it's not going to work if you're hustling and grind every day and doing something from that energy. How do you move through that?
Yeah, you definitely first have to acknowledge that the story in your head is, I have to work hard to make money. And that is just a story. That the idea that money only comes from hustling or grinding or being productive is a lie of this reality. And I can say that so confidently because I've proven it to myself over and over and over again, that you can receive from surrender. You can receive from pause. You can receive from open curiosity. And again, the systems that we create in an online business or an entrepreneurship are there to support you to allow more money to flow in without grinding. And there's a lot of things you can set up to make it possible to wake up to, unexpected money in your life. But the belief that hustle equals money and nothing else does is really just like closing the aperture of possibility on how money could be coming in.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool. I want to go back to your books a little bit. I've been in process myself for a minute on this, and finding time to write and during travel and all of that stuff, and producing the show has been challenging. But you've been through that process, and I was wondering, what are some of the biggest takeaways for you that came out of the process of writing your books?
Yeah, it's relevant right now. I'm working on my next book. One thing is dedicated time, having an appointment with yourself or even with somebody else. So that's the second thing, is having accountability, somebody that is going to ask you or check in with you, or that will actually sit and be on Zoom with you for an hour a week or 2 hours a week to work on their own project while you're working on your own projects. You have somebody sort of not enforcing, but holding you accountable to show up for that time. So accountability is one thing. The other thing I was saying is, energetically, when you make an appointment with yourself for a creative project like that, it's not just to keep you following through on it. There's also something magical that happens with your muse, with your guides, with your, higher self that is ready to show up with you in that moment. So it's really, really amazing to make a date with yourself to do a creative project like writing a book or building something new, and keep that date with yourself, because all the things that have been coalescing in the unseen world, the energetic side of things, are waiting for that moment to show up for you. So if you don't keep that date, you may have lost out on some opportunity to download something that you weren't going to access before. But keeping that date, you start to reinforce that, hey, we're doing this. Hey, universe, I'm showing up for this project. I want to see it through. And other stuff kind of shows up to support that when you keep a date with yourself. So those are two tactics, I would say. get accountability if you're not following through, set an appointment and keep that date with yourself to just keep ticking away. And then strategically or sort of format wise with a book, I find it's a lot easier to come up with a sort of not a container in a way that contains it, but sort of a container in a way that gives you space to create inside of. So I find it's easier for my nonfiction book. There's 6 sections of the book, sort of like the outline, which is a framework that I came up with for my Oracle deck of some cards from the tarot, the major arcana of the tarot, and how that journey sort of explains our growth into leadership, which is the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, and the Hierophant, and the Wheel of Fortune. I think I threw in the book. It's definitely in the Oracle deck. But having that container, as I was like, okay, what stories am I putting into this section of the book? It gave me like a sandbox to play inside of, which is easier to me than just sort of walking into the great unknown with no idea of where the bumpers are on the bowling lane or anything. So I find that that's one game to play that can make it a little bit easier of inventing some sort of a framework or some sort of an outline that you can explore inside of.
Yeah, those are
Yeah, for the fiction book I'm working
yeah.
on right now, I went into what's the arc of the story for a while before I actually started writing chapters of the book. So I wanted to get an idea of how does she evolve as a person in the story, as a character? What are the big like turning point moments that I want to make sure I hit? And then I can start writing inside of there knowing that's where we're going.
Yeah, it helps to have a map, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, you don't have to have a map. There's some part of you that knows subconsciously or higher consciously, super consciously, where you're going, even if your conscious mind has no clue. So sometimes just sitting down to write will get you there too.
Yeah, I've known people like that. I haven't been one of them. So the rest of us need something. To step like you were talking about, stepping out into the abyss, and there's too much to choose from, right? I
Yeah.
need I need a path. I need some lights along the way to keep me on it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we talked about this earlier. You've been at this for a while. You jumped right in. You started figuring this stuff out the hard way for the rest of us. Thank you so much. And I know that there were times where you did some things that you would have considered mistakes. If you could go back, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
First, I would tell me to stop being so hard on myself, stop comparing myself to others. I feel like these are things we hear a lot in the personal development world. But
Easier said than done, huh?
I did a lot of judging myself based on other people's growth, based on other people's success, which is kind of the fallback of being in community while you're growing your business is sometimes it's easy to compare what you're doing to other people, and that can be emotional and hard. So I would give her a little pep talk about that not being relevant and getting clear on what is relevant to my own journey and my own growth, and that what I'm creating, even if somebody else has the same niche and is doing the same kinds of offerings, I'm doing it in such a different way for a different group of people that it cannot possibly be compared. And both are beautiful, and neither is better than the other. So first, I would, yeah, pep talk her about comparison. And when I was starting out, I really didn't understand. I had that work hard equals money and did not understand that more can be generated from a rest and create dynamic versus just a go, 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 make, happen, happen, happen. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stress in that because if it's all on your shoulders, if you're not bringing in enough money or attracting enough money, that must mean you're not working hard enough. Like the clarity of how that leads to burnout is just so obvious now. But yeah, I didn't get that back then. So that would be something that starting out, I would want to understand a little bit more deeply. And some things we have to go through them to get to that understanding to really, viscerally get that other possibilities are available, other ways of operating are functional beyond just work and hustle and grind. But, strategically, one of the things that I failed a lot at the beginning was trying to launch a program, making a whole program, building out all the pieces, making all the videos, making all the templates, making all the worksheets, and then trying to invite people to it and having it not sell was one of the bigger like heartbreak cycles of my early years in business. And the antidote to that, which I discovered after a few failed attempts, is you build the outline and you understand what you're going to make, what you're going to put in those videos, what you're going to put in those templates, but then you sell it. You make the sales page, you make the checkout cart, you make the welcome email, and you launch it. And if nobody buys it, it doesn't mean it's not a good idea. It might mean you didn't share it with the right people. It might mean the title needs to change. It might mean the sales page or the pricing needs a little adjusting, but you haven't just spent months of your life building a course that now you feel like a failure for. You get to stay in that experimentation and tweaking phase a little bit longer. So pre-sell is what we call that. Doesn't mean you're not going to follow through. And what's beautiful about pre-selling is once people have bought it, you've got this really yummy fire under your butt to follow through and finish all those things, which isn't there if you're waiting to finish all the content before you ever share it. So it makes a little bit of follow through, generative energy behind it. And it's a lot easier to do it that way. I think I had one more thing around that I was going to share, but it'll come back to me.
Talk about accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sell it. Now you better follow through.
Yeah. And you could make the first module, but don't go building out 6 months of content without knowing that's the way to phrase it. That's the way to talk about it. That's the thing my people are looking for and ready to spend to invest in.
Sure, and it makes sense. I mean, big companies do a lot of market testing before they throw millions and millions of dollars into creating a new product or launching a new course or something. Sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And that feedback along the way makes the content you would put in those later modules even juicier because you know what somebody's dealing with and you know what their questions they're asking. And now the breadth of the rest of the material can go so much deeper and be more targeted and specific too.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. What are some marketing practices that have been working for you lately?
Lately, I mean, the things that are beautiful, shortening attention spans are most engaged in is definitely short form video content. So that can look a lot of different ways. But for me, I used to be a lot better, or not better, I used to be a lot more in the game of pre-creating content and scheduling it out so that I didn't have to think about it. Lately, I've been a lot more in the moment of wanting to engage with my social media or online presence as like a game of what's up, what's true, what's real for me right now, and being in this like present creation moment with it. But definitely short form video content is what's working best. And I will say this isn't a new concept, but I still want to toot the horn of an email list. People think email is dead. People think they don't open their emails, but it's still 100% the most effective way to gather your audience, to reach out to your audience, and to invite your audience to something that you're offering or creating now. I just sent an email, just woke up with an idea, felt like, you know what, share that. I said 2 spots were open for private clients in August. And if you want one of those spots, let me know. And those 2 spots got filled within like a couple days of sending that email. And that's the power of an email list. If I put that on social media, it's, hopefully that gets enough traction to get in front of the right people and they know who I am enough to want to dive into that, which is the beauty of social media is we can start building that know, like, and trust factor. But having an email list time and again over the last 10 years, when I need to either generate more money or I want to play in a new arena or I want to invite people to a new kind of offering or to something that I've just created I'm excited about, my email list 100% of the time is getting me more results, is getting me more connection to people, is getting more people to engage than my social media. And that could be because of how my social media hasn't been my main focus and my email list has. But for anybody I've worked with who's been launching something as well, most of their results are going to be coming from that ongoing nurtured connection via their email list with their audience.
Yeah, and it makes
You
sense. The
can't
email
get
list is
banned.
What's that?
You can't get shadow banned on your email list. You're paying for that software to make
That's
sure
right.
you can contact your people. Yeah.
Well, the email list is it's more intimate. The people on your list, they're allowing you into their inbox, and it
Yeah.
shows up. It's directly from you, directly to them. I think it's very important to me who I allow into my inbox. And there's no
Yeah.
metaphor here. Don't make something dirty out of it. Just get your mind out of the gutter, people. It is. Uh, it's a gift when someone allows you to have their email.
Yeah, and it's an honor to have that real estate too. And so if we treat it as the honor that it is to be one of the chosen few that they keep in their inbox, like we should be nurturing that connection. We should be delivering value. We should be, sharing stuff that is supportive and inspiring for them.
Cool. All right, we're a few minutes away from bouncing, but I have one other question that I want to ask you. Can you talk about some of the nuances of building a business online versus in person? Because I know you've done both.
Yeah, I was like, have I done both? Yeah, when I
Yep.
started my career as an entrepreneur, I was doing hypnotherapy sessions in person in an office. So yes, I guess I have done in person. It was so long ago. It's hard to
You were
imagine or
also a
remember very
craftsman, is
much.
that right? You're an artisan.
Yeah, I used to sell art more in person as well. Yeah, that was more of a hippie vagabond tool to
Counts.
keep staying on the road. It counts. Okay. Yeah, it's I mean, if you're talking about an actual business that you're running and growing, I think both need a similar online presence. Both need to be marketing and broadcasting and building an email list and, nurturing their people. The difference for me is if you're more online, you have just innately more freedom to systemize things so that you can be offline more often or not, present every day of the week or every moment of the day. A lot of systems can support us to take time off, to batch or automate or schedule out certain things so that we don't have to be on, to still be showing up, to still be reaching our people, to still be engaging our audience or drawing them in and inviting them. Whereas in an in-person business, there's a little bit more need, or there's a little bit more like attention focused on being in the space, getting yourself there, keeping it beautiful, staying organized. Like you're in more of a local demographic of people you can be reaching out to. So there's a little bit maybe more networking involved or necessary to continue growing in that way. It's hard for me to even tap into right now, the in-person side of things, but the need for showing up online, I think, is similar. Both of them still require to have some systemization or online presence set up, and to do that in a way that it doesn't detract from doing what you actually want to be doing, which is the work itself. The marketing doesn't need to be your whole job, but it is a part of the job either way.
Cool. Thank you for that. That's very helpful. I think it's time for us to bounce to the after party. I want to just mention one more thing before we go, and that is that it is your support that keeps the evolutionary conversation going and growing, and you can show that support in a lot of ways. The most important thing is your time, attention, and energy that you give to the show. Thank you so much for showing up, for sharing with others. But probably the most important way that you can show support for this show is the same way that you can show support for humanity, and that is love yourself. Learn how. Figure out what are the things that you can do that looks like loving yourself, and then take that out into the world and learn how to apply that to others. And it is so much more authentic when you come from that space, and that makes the world a better place. And that is the whole point of the evolutionary. The other things that you can do is subscribe on YouTube. That makes a material difference to me and the long-term viability of the show. So please check it out, youtube.com/@theevolutionarylife. You can direct financial support is also needed. Of course, there's bills to pay, and we would like to keep doing this for as long as we are alive. When I say we, I mean me, myself, and I, and everyone else who helps. So if it is within your means to do so, and you like what we're doing here, please consider becoming a contributing member of the Evolutionary. And in doing so, you will gain access to all of the after party recordings and any other cool exclusive content that we decide to post there. And also, when we get swag, you'll get swag at cost. And you can do that by going to theevolutionary.life. That's right, .life, because .com is so last season. That's theevolutionary.life. And you can go to click on Get Involved. And then, of course, if you'd like to receive email notifications regarding our shows and anything else that we're doing, you can go to the bottom of absolutely any page on that website and put in your deets and get notified. The last thing I'd like to ask for is if you have anything that you think would be interesting for the Good News and Fresh Perspectives segment, slide onto my DM on Instagram, The Evolutionary, at The Evolutionary Life, and send me something. I'd love to crowdsource some cool opportunity or some cool pieces for that segment. So thank you very much to everyone who jumped on for the live stream. I appreciate your presence so much. We are going to end the live stream at this point. If you are on the Zoom call, hang tight. You don't have to do anything. We're just going to go right into it, and Molly is going to give us some mindset coaching, and if anyone has any specific things that they would like to ask about, she will do a little hot seat coaching. And so hang tight, and everyone else, thank you. Talk to you next time.